Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jeffrey Moose Gallery. I'm going to write a little letter. I'm going to mail it to my local DJ about a rockin' little record I want my jockey to play. Roll over Beethoven. Bob is back in town today. There's Elias Moose. He's our cameraman. He's going to be shooting our live stream today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream of Jeffrey Moose Gallery's show of Bob Lucas's work. This is a show called Non-Local. And there's me. The picture is fuzzy. How do we fix that?
Let's just use the front camera. Here we go. Switch it around. Get back to where we were.
Here we go. Jeffrey Moose Gallery. That's right. We're back live at the gallery and we're celebrating the work of my dear friend Bob Lucas, who moved to Costa Rica in 2003. In 2014, when my gallery was still downtown Seattle, we did a show of Bob's work along with our pal Suzanne Haddon. Together they did some amazing goddess shows over the year. To date we've done 8 different shows on the theme of the goddess. And Bob helped to start it all with his goddess figures. So, although Bob's not here, we've got his face on the wall, and apparently he's going to be watching in Costa Rica. So tonight we're going to live stream for about 20 minutes, and then on first Friday, May the 7th, we're going to have a Zoom call with Bob. So all you folks who want to catch up with Bob, contact me at jmoose@jeffreymoosegallery.com, and we'll get you set up on the Zoom call. Right now, let's walk through the exhibition. Come on over. Starting with this piece that Bob did for the show, a great title, Show Statement Portrait. Yes, folks, this is Bob's portrait superimposed in enamel on glass over his show statement. You can't read it that much, but I guess that's the point. The show statement has become an object in the show. Moving to the right is a piece that's very important and dear to me. A piece that was hanging in my parents' dining room for many years. In fact, I think close to 20 years. This is a piece Bob did long ago, not for the show in 2014, but I had to show it because it's so important. It's a piece called Family Portrait, and it is enamel on copper fused between 2 pieces of glass and mounted on wood. The title Family Portrait is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. As you can see, a child here is being nurtured by this alien-type goddess figure. But there's something going on in the house that's rather unusual. There seems to be sunshine in this window, although it's a window into the inside. Rainstorm on this window, and then some dark figures on these 2 windows. Very interesting. So come on back into the gallery and we'll get into the show. Next up, this is one of my favorite black and white pieces of Bob's. Bob has worked in sketchbooks and from sketchbooks for decades, and I can only imagine that this beautiful pencil drawing, or maybe charcoal, came from a sketch from one of his books and then he enlarged it. We actually created a small edition of digital prints with this image. It's entitled Communication Merge. Oh, it's about 18 by 24, framed in a square black molding. Small edition of 10 prints. I love that piece because it seems to communicate the information being transmitted between two people. Over here, we got a beautiful piece of fused glass. This piece is a collaboration between Bob and artist Tim Beckstrom. This piece is called Cell Divide. The fused glass is mounted on board there. And moving to the left, one of the most unusual pieces in the gallery, and also invoking a dear friend and colleague down in Alabama, the one and only Gary Nicholson, author, artist, poet, mega genius. Gary's novel, Lights Over Vicksburg, is the title of this piece. Now, from what I understand, Lights Over Vicksburg has to do with the alien involvement in the Civil War Battle of Vicksburg. And what a topic. That's a teaser. You're going to have to get online and find Gary's book and buy a copy to hear the details. This piece is fascinating, as it is probably the most multimedia piece in the whole show. This, I think, is a portrait of Gary, perhaps from Bob's memory. This is a little piece of fused glass created by one of Bob's daughters. This is another piece of fused glass using Bob's ear motif, which reappears several times during this exhibition. And this bizarre alien-like figure over here. And then, as if this piece wasn't unusual enough, there's a small edition of this little clay fragment, also made by one of Bob's kids in Costa Rica. So this is a serious collaborative work. Very cool, Bob and Gary. I hope Gary gets to see this. Now get on over here and we're going to see some beautiful fused glass. This is a cool piece Bob did called With Portrait of Suzanne. As I mentioned, Suzanne Haddon was his exhibition partner in the show in 2014, and he was kind enough to depict her. I guess that's her back here, and then he's superimposed in the front. Suzanne left the United States, moved to Australia, lives on the beach and surfs and makes art. Mostly commercial, but some fine art. Down here, very unusual piece. Almost reminds me of the alien theme of Lights Over Vicksburg. This piece is called Touch 2. It's approximately 12 by 12 in beautiful fused glass panel mounted on hardwood. Also a collaboration between Bob Lucas and artist Tim Beckstrom. Touch 2. Moving to the right, we have a mysterious high-resolution photo presented as a digital print. This work is called Gatekeeper. I wish we had Bob to talk a little bit about this piece, because it looks like here's some tools of the trade, ceramic or glass tools, Bob's spectacles, and then these three pronounced items, including perhaps a cast of Bob's finger. That's Gatekeeper. And an edition of 10. Order yours today. Operators are standing by. Not really, but we'd be happy to print one for you. This is one of two beautiful altar-like pieces which appear in the show. Also a collaboration with Tim Beckstrom. Tim did a beautiful job of complementing Bob's little fused glass piece here with a little bone fragment. Looks like a tiny vertebrae of some kind of small animal. I'm going to guess it's a rabbit or a squirrel or something. And then back when Bob was in Kitsap County, the most common artworks you'd see by Bob were these little goddesses, and of course the cast fish heads and fish tails. This mysterious piece is entitled Figure. And now we get to the meat of the show, folks. As I mentioned, the title or the theme for the show is non-local. So Bob has this dual existence. He's living in Costa Rica, but he's from the United States. He speaks English, he speaks Spanish, he's a little bit on Earth, and he's a little bit in space. And as we work through the pandemic, we are all confronted by the duality of our existence. The fact that we used to live a certain way and now we are locked inside. So that helps us relate to this concept of duality. This central piece is really the theme image for the show in many ways, looking at the duality vessel. And again, I wish I had Bob here to explain the content, but like many of the songs written by the Beatles, attempts at explanation or interpretation are best left to the viewer. Moving up, we have another representation of Bob. This is a hilariously titled piece called Approximate Me. When I spoke to Bob via Skype a couple of days ago, he had a big white beard. So for those Bob fans, here's a clean, unshaven Bob. And he's got his hat on. He used to wear that hat all the time in the old days. I don't know if he still does. And this is a beautiful group of three here. Down here on the bottom, we've got a piece entitled Touch Under the Sea. Enamel on fused glass. And you can kind of see a little sea critter there. And then maybe this is a diver's helmet, perhaps a starfish or a sea jellyfish or something. At any rate, it's a beautiful image and evokes the mystery of underwater and perhaps alien life forms. Indeed. Well, I've been known to talk a little bit, and as you can hear, that's exactly what I'm doing. These are two of my favorite pieces in the show because they're simple, but they have incredible impact. The top piece, entitled Contact, is basically fused glass. It's got just a little bit of pigment. I always thought Bob was highly underrated as a glass artist in our area. With all the big names, no one ever talked about Bob's glass creations, but I always found them to be clever, art historical, and much more interesting than the so-called objet d'art that the glass world was cranking out at high volume and for ridiculous prices. Below that piece is, I think this is one of Bob's great art historical comments. This piece is called 3D Cube. As you can see, it's a flat image, but it depicts a three-dimensional object, and it does so in this transparent state that is, I don't know, almost, it's almost a commentary about the illusion of art and how we depict three-dimensional things on a two-dimensional surface and expect people to believe it. This, however, is a quite believable three-dimensional object. It does seem to be standing out, and yet it's flat. Very interesting. Now, for those of you who are pent up and filled with anxiety after a year plus quarantining and dealing with face masks and hand washing and all this crazy stuff, you might really relate to this image of Bob. I think this might be another self-portrait. This one's called Discoagulation. And there is some serious discoagulation going on. This image is fascinating because it's made on a couple of levels. There's a background image that has this orange and white, almost a floral pattern. And then the image of the self-portrait, or what I'm thinking is a self-portrait, is in the foreground. So there's some very interesting depth in this piece. Down below we have a piece, a cute little, almost a comical little piece called Fear Ear. Why don't you zoom in on that so folks can see the little detail. Very cool. Again, the interpretation is yours and yours alone. Now, back before the turn of the century, when we were all unjaded and optimistic and looking forward to the future, Bob made this beautiful piece entitled Value. Now, this piece is not technically part of the 2014 exhibit, but in my opinion, well, I should say not in my opinion, this is my personal favorite piece of Bob's, which is in my collection. I love this piece, and I need to figure out how to properly frame it. Now, last but not least, we're going to go to the card image for our show. Come on over here, Elias, and we'll focus on this piece. You can see a photo on the website, also on the invitation, the printed invitation. This piece is another collaboration with Tim Beckstrom, and Tim did an amazing job of putting this standing, disassociated figure in context. We have two small jars with shavings. This one contains wood shavings, this one contains gold shavings. In between is a bone. I have a sense that this piece has to do with mortality, but then again, my interpretation is only mine. Speaking of mortality, we talked about Bob's fish heads and fish tails. Well, along the way, Bob cast this beautiful skull, which is the focus of a digital print entitled Skull. And yeah, it's a little bit spooky, but the fish heads seem to give it a little bit of a comic lift. And wouldn't this look perfect in your game room? Indeed. Skull is also printed in an edition of 10, and we're ready to deliver this piece to the location of your choosing. Folks, that's just about it. We are live here at Jeffrey Moose Galley doing the live stream, but we'll be back with a Zoom call featuring the great Bob Lucas on our first Friday, May the 7th. But while you're relaxing and reaching for your beverage and thinking, thank God it's Friday, I'd like to point out to you that there are folks in our community right here in beautiful Kitsap County who could use a hand up. And I'd like you to go and pay attention to Kitsap Community Resources. Look them up, Google them, find their website, give them some dough. They are around to help folks recover from the pandemic. They provide job placement, they provide meal services, they provide child care. Kitsap Community Services in Bremerton, folks. Do a good deed for somebody else and give them a few bucks. And come on by Jeffrey Moose Gallery and see Bob's show, Non-Local. It's up for April and May. Many blessings, and thank you, Bob. I know you're watching in Costa Rica. Love you, brother. Take care.